There she is. Hello, Donna. Great to see you, and welcome to Ireland. So, Donna, I'm just going to mute everybody. I'm getting all excited, muting everybody. And I'm going to unmute Donna. So, Donna, I have to ask you to unmute and then you have to unmute yourself. There we go. So, Donna, welcome to Ireland.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. You have no idea. And it's great to see you here in the south. Of course, I've seen you up north in the beautiful Ballyamen Barn session. And we've performed together through these crazy times in the USA and in Ireland. And I think maybe a little bit in Europe as well. I'm a little bit fuzzy on that one. So the way it works, Dana, is you get to entertain us for 30 minutes. And then we let you take a back seat and we're going to entertain you right back. And I have a great lineup tonight and they're all excited to tell you tales. So this is just an introduction to Dana. I want to tell everybody that this woman is so accomplished. She has so many genres of story. And the more I see her, the more I like her. And I know Godfrey agrees with me on that one. So I'm just going to let you go to tell your tales, Dana, and I will talk to you in 30 minutes. So
Okay.
off you go.
Well, thank you so much, Mar, for inviting me here this evening, or well, for me this afternoon. Um, I'm really glad to be here. I love being able to share stories with people I don't get to see very often. And it's also fun to tell to people I've never told to before, or at least that I don't know that I've told to before. It's always fun. Um, I always worry that I don't necessarily like to tell the same stories over and over again to people, even though sometimes people request stories. And so Mara, this evening when I got here, was like, I'm not trying to put any pressure on you, but I want a Brer Rabbit story. So, Mara, to that end, at the end of the evening, after I get my slew of stories, which I'm looking forward to, I will tell you a Brer Rabbit story to end out the evening. So there you go. But I'm going to start actually with a commercial. My new book is coming out. Here is a copy of it. It's a picture book. It will be on the shelves September 1st. It will be released. It's a really great read aloud book. It's based on a story that my children made up with me at the breakfast table when they were really little. And anybody who wants to tell the story, once you learn it, you are welcome to tell it. I believe that stories should not stay in books; they should be played with. So if you are moved to tell that story after you read it, by all means, just let me know you're doing it. I want to see it, just because I want to see it. But yeah, it's called Boo Stew. Okay, I am always at a loss for what to tell when I'm asked to be part of an evening. I like to find out what everyone else is telling and then make sure that I am part of the experience. So when I have to be the first one up and I can tell anything I like, I spend days going, "Oh, I want to tell that." No, no, no. Oh, I know, I could tell that. So since one thing I have loved about being listening to Irish storytellers is that I have heard lots of folklore. And in America, we don't get as much anymore. Not a lot of people are doing it. They're telling their own stories, which is great. I enjoy listening to those, but I love folklore. So I thought that I would start my half an hour with folklore because it makes me happy. Now, if we were closer to October, I would tell you stories to make your hair stand on end because I love scary stories. But we're not close enough to October for me to break those out. So I thought I would tell for my first story, and this is a long one, so I think I may get one and a piece. Um, my first story is a story that I learned from a woman named Janice Harrington. And I learned it, I've been a storyteller for 34 years. This is the only job I've ever had as a grown up person. I graduated from university, and since then, I've just been touring the world telling people stories. And about 32 years ago, I was with Janice Del Negro, who is just an absolutely lovely storyteller, wonderful friend, scholar. And she called me because I used to live in Chicago. And she called me and she said, "There is a storyteller at my house. Her name is Janice Harrington. Do you know who she is?" I said, "Yes, I've seen her. She's fabulous. She needs a babysitter. Could you please come to my house and sit with her while I run errands?" I was like, "Why does she need a babysitter?" "She needs a babysitter." So I got on the train, the L train, and I went down into the city to Janice's house. And I got to see Janice Harrington, who is one of my storytelling heroes. She's a poetess these days. She has social anxiety and stage fright like you would not believe. And she was supposed to be at a festival that weekend. And she was bouncing off the walls. I mean, literally. So I arrived not being certain why Janice Harrington needed a babysitter, and got there and went, oh, my job is to tell her she's brilliant and to calm down. So for 2 hours, while Janice Del Negro was out running errands, I was with Janice Harrington, telling her she was brilliant and she needed to calm down. And she told me the most wonderful stories. And this is one of the ones I heard Janice Harrington tell that day. Years later, I called her back and said, "Where did you get this story?" And she was so manic, she couldn't remember where she got it from. Even talking to her about telling it made her nervous. So I don't tell it very often because she doesn't remember where she got it from. And I have searched and searched, and it's completely possible she made it up and doesn't remember that she did it. So I got this story from Janice Harrington, who believes that she got it from a book of West African folklore, which she can no longer recall. So there's the chain of command for that particular story. This is how it came to be. It's called the Crocodile River. Long ago, there was a village in West Africa where all of the people took care of each other. They believed in the philosophy of plenty, which basically says, if I have something and you need it, and I withhold it from you when I don't have to, and something happens to you, that's my fault. It's my fault for not sharing what I have. And the philosophy of plenty is what kept this village going. It didn't have a lot of wealth. Everyone was living off the land and sharing what they had. All the children played together. All of the adults worked together. And for the most part, everyone worked very well. There was one woman who lived outside the village, just outside, and her name was Ofiki. And Ofiki was not a very nice lady. I mean, there's no other way to say it. She just was not very nice. Ofiki always needed stuff, but she never wanted to help anybody. She would come charging into the village and announce that she needed things, and announce that her crop hadn't gone well, and announce that this had happened. And she expected people to help her. But if you went to see Ofiki, she was busy. Or she would see you and she'd go out the other door and run out into the forest. She had something to do. But because no one wanted her to, she was an older woman, they didn't want her to die out there by herself. When she came in and she needed help, people helped her. Now, there was one thing that children of the village were never supposed to do. And they were never supposed to go down to what was called the Crocodile River. The Crocodile River was a bit of a walk from the village, but it was full of crocodiles. And wild animals would come there to drink. So the children knew not to go down there. It was one of the big rules. Don't go down to the Crocodile River. Well, a day came when a sickness came to that village. It came to the whole area. But when it hit that village, it hit it hard. Some people only got a little sick, and some people didn't feel anything at all, but lots of people got very sick. There was a little girl named Marmar, and she lived with her family. She had lots of brothers and sisters, her uncles, her aunts, her cousins. They all lived in a little compound together near the village, and every single one of them got it. It started with a fever, and it just got worse and worse. And little by little, the adults couldn't help anyone. They were just as sick as everyone else. And Marmar was very ill, but she recovered from it. But in that group of people, she was the only one. She was orphaned. She was left alone. So she gathered what little they had left and she went into the village proper to see if she could help. And there were still very ill people. And because she was no longer going to get the sickness, at least she didn't seem to, she put hands in and helped here and helped here and helped here. And eventually the sickness did pass. And when it was gone, the village was decimated. There were still families standing. Everybody was doing what they could to find something to eat, to take care of themselves. And Marma realized there wasn't a place for her. There was nothing she could do. She was afraid if she joined another family, she'd be just one extra mouth to feed. She didn't know what she was going to do. The villagers, well, they had already decided they were going to figure it out. When Ofiki came storming into the village to announce that she needed things, and she was the only one living at her home. And they said to Ofiki, "You must take Marmar. You must take her." And Ofiki said, "I don't want a child. If I'd wanted a child, I would have had one." And they said, "It doesn't matter whether you want a child or not. We need your help." "I don't care. I'm not going to take on a child. What do I know about children?" They said, "Ofiki, if you do not take her, we will not help you anymore. How dare you? How dare we? How dare you?" Well, of course, Marmar was around for all of this, meaning she did not want to go and live with Ofiki. But there was no place for her there. And so Ofiki, in an absolute huff, bundled Marmar off to her home. Now, Ofiki had a large home. And as Marmar went inside, she realized Ofiki didn't actually need much of anything from the village. She had what looked to Marmar like riches in her home. And she had food stored. And she said, "Don't you dare tell anyone what's in my home. It's nobody's business." "Okay. And if you say a word, I swear to you, I will throw you out." "All right." And it didn't take long for Marmar to realize how Ofiki made her money. Ofiki trapped animals, and then she took their fur, their feathers, and she made accessories like hats and brooches and things. And then she would walk to the larger cities and she would sell those things. And then she would come home with money. She loved money, and she had it hoarded all around her house. Marmar kept her mouth closed, but she was very uncomfortable. With this kind of help, the village would be doing very well. But again, she didn't have the right to anything that Ofiki owned. And then she learned something else about Ofiki. Ofiki was wasteful. Ofiki didn't use the animals that she trapped for food. She mostly threw the meat away and just took their fur, their feathers. Another assault against the earth itself. And Marmar kept her mouth closed. She didn't want to be a burden, and nobody was entitled to anything Ofiki had. Now, you would think with Ofiki having all the food and all the money and enough to take care of everything, that she would at least help Marmar. But she did not. She made Marmar work for everything she had, from working in what she could out of the garden. And she didn't necessarily want her to cook the meat from the animals that she skinned. She felt that that was, the girl would just become ungrateful if you gave her too many things. She had only her worn clothes to wear, and Ofiki did not offer to give her anything else, even though she had and could have had clothes for Marmar. "You're not my child. You're just here until I can send you back. Do you hear me?" "Yes, I hear you." Well, Marmar was outside, and she was working in the ground, working in the garden, and she heard a bird sing, and she looked up, and there was a beautiful bird with wildly fantastic colors on its feathers, and she saw it hopping and hopping and got caught in one of Ofiki's traps. Marmar could not bear this. She couldn't bear it. She climbed up the tree as fast as she could and carefully took the bird out of the trap and set it up on a branch and then reset the trap. And the bird preened its feathers. She wanted it to leave. She goes, "Shoo, shoo, if she comes back and sees you, I'll be in so much trouble. Shoo." But the bird did not leave. Just kept preening its feathers. And then it just looked at her and said, "Who are you?" I don't know how you would be if a bird just randomly talked to you, but Marmar was quite surprised. "Who are you?" the bird asked again. Uh, I'm Marmar. "Marmar. All right." and the bird flew off. She went down the tree, and then she went back to working in the garden. Ofiki came out a little later and looked up. What Marmar didn't know is that the bird had left a single feather in that trap, and as soon as she saw it, she knew exactly what kind of bird it was. And she knew there was no way it could have gotten out of that trap alone. She looked down at Marmar, and she made a decision. She had to get rid of that girl. She had to get rid of her. Well, Marmar wasn't paying attention to that. She was busy just digging and planting and trying really hard to be as small and out of the way as possible. The next morning, Marmar got up, and Ofiki said, "Girl, porridge. Go and make some porridge. Go, go, go." Marmar took the pot outside, and she knew what it meant. She dug a little hole. She put some wood in there. She heated it up, and then she got a little pot, put some water in, put it over the fire, and she put the rice in to make porridge. When she heard, "Girl, come here right now. Come, come, come. But come, do you hear me? Come." So Marmar left the water boiling with the porridge, and she went in to see Ofiki, and Ofiki kept her there until black, acrid smoke began to come out of the pot. And then she ran outside, and she pulled the pot off the coals, and she threw it to the ground. She said, "You stupid girl, you've ruined my pot. You take this pot, and you go down to the Crocodile River, and you wash it out, and don't you dare come back unless you have washed it clean. Go." Marmar said, "I can't." "You go. You do as I say. You're in my house. You do as I say." So Marmar took the pot, knowing that if she went down to the Crocodile River, she would not return. What could she do? She couldn't go back to the village. She didn't want to be a burden on anyone. And so she took the pot, and she thought, all my family is gone. My mother is gone. My brothers and sisters, everyone is gone. Perhaps I should not be here either. And as she walked to her fate, she began to sing under her breath. "My name is Marmar, no mother have I go to the river where crocodiles lie. Ofiki, she told me, wash this in waters deep, where lions go to drink and crocodiles sleep." And then she heard, "Marmar." And she heard it again. "Marmar." The bird, with all the bright feathers, landed on a branch nearby and said, "Where are you going? You were singing about the Crocodile River. Why are you singing about the Crocodile River?" Marmar said, "I have to go down there. Ofiki says I have to wash this pot out, and if I don't wash it out, she's going to send me out into the world, and I have nowhere to go." The bird said, "You cannot go down there. The king of the crocodiles is down there. He's beached himself. He's gnashing his teeth. All the crocodiles are up and down there. If you go down there, you will be eaten." She said, "I have no choice." The bird said, "You do have a choice. Give me that." And he took the pot. "You are a child. Go and play. I will be back." And the bird flew off with her pot. And it seemed to her that she heard laughter. And she followed it and into the trees, and she found children from the village. She hadn't seen them in months. Oh, they hugged each other. They laughed. They asked how she was at Ofiki's house, and she didn't answer. But she did get to play. And they found wild figs, and they picked as many as they could, and she sat there and ate wild figs and laughed with her friends. She gathered some up in her apron to eat for later, and then she gave the rest to her friends. They helped them gather them up, and they all took them back to the village. There would be food for everyone, and there'd be food for her too. Well, a little while later, she heard the bird calling her, "Marmar." It landed with the pot, which was completely clean. It looked brand new. "How did you do that?" "That's not important." And she took the pot. And then the bird said, "I told my wife about you, and she was very upset that I hadn't given you a present for saving my life. So here." And the bird reached beneath its wing and pulled out a feather made of pure silver. "For you." Well, she took the silver feather, and she tucked it in her apron with the figs, and then she went back home. Now, Ofiki was not expecting to see her, and so when she showed up, Ofiki was quite astonished. "You did not do what I told you to do." And she held up the pot. Ofiki grabbed it and looked at it. "How did you do this?" Marmar didn't say anything. Well, Ofiki was more than ever determined to be rid of her. And so the next morning, after breakfast, uh, Ofiki came out and began to yell at her and tell her she needed to get the cleaning done. And Marmar came inside and began to clean the floors. And Ofiki gave her a cloth to clean the floors with. And as she was cleaning the floors, Ofiki came in and said, "You stupid girl, what have you got?" And pulled the cloth out of her hands. And there, of course, was the stains where she'd been cleaning the floor. "You should not be using this to clean the floor. How dare you? You take this down to the Crocodile River and wash it out." She said, "But just do it. Do it now, or I'll throw you out and have no more to do with you. Go." Well, she couldn't go back to the village. Not yet. It wasn't enough. She had stored some figs away, and she did have that silver feather, but was that enough? She didn't think that was enough. It didn't matter anyway. Ofiki was going to find it after she was killed at the Crocodile River. And so she took the cloth. She began to go down to the river, and as she had done the day before, she sang to herself, "My name is Mama, no mother have I go to the river where crocodiles lie. Oh, Fiki, she told me, wash this in waters deep, where lions go to drink and crocodiles sleep." And then she heard it again. Mama. She stopped and looked up, and there was the bird. Mama. He landed on the branch again with the Crocodile River. You cannot go down there. The king of the crocodiles is there, and the king of the lions. The lion has come up. He's growling at the crocodile. The crocodile is gnashing his teeth. If you go down there, you will get eaten. She said, "I have no choice. Ofiki wants me to wash all these stains out of this rag. I cannot do it. If I go down there, I'm eaten, so I'm eaten. I'll be with my mother and my cousins." "Ah, nonsense," said the bird. "You are a child, a child. Children need to play. Give me that." And he took it out of her hands. You go. "I know where you can find some wonderful berries. They're delicious and sweet." And he told her where to go. "Meet me here later. I'll get this back to you." And the bird flew off. Well, she did. She found the place where there were the berries. Oh, and they were sweet. They were perfect. But she didn't pick them all and eat them. She went walking the forest until she heard the sound of a friend's laughter. And then she brought them to the bush with her, and they picked berries, and everyone had enough to eat. Their faces were practically purple. They gathered up what they could, and they began to head home, and she went back to meet the bird. And when she got there, the cloth was pristine and beautiful. She said, "Thank you so much." And the bird said, I told my wife that I gave you a silver feather, and she hit me with her wing. She said I did not do enough. Here." And he reached beneath his wings, his plumage, and he pulled out a feather of pure gold, and he gave that to her. "Now I think our debt is done. I think I've done enough." She says, "You've done more than enough. Thank you so much." And he took the cloth and the feather, and she concealed the feather in her apron with the berries, and she went home. And Ofiki was not happy to see her, nor was she happy to see the cloth. She could not understand what was going on. And she decided that it didn't matter. She just needed to be rid of Marmar forever. Just she didn't want to see that girl ever again. And so the next morning, before anything happened, breakfast or anything else, she simply walked up to Marmar and dropped blue cloth at her feet and said, "I meant to get white cloth, but unfortunately I picked up blue. Take it down to the Crocodile River and wash the blue out of this cloth. Don't you dare come back until you've done it." She couldn't do that. She wouldn't come back. Solved. Marmar held it up and she said, "Oh, Fiki, it's not. I don't care what you have to say. How dare you speak to me like that? You ever talk back to me again, girl, and I will beat you. Do you hear me? I will beat you." And so Marmar turned around with the blue cloth, and she began to walk down to the river, and she sang her song. "My name is Marmar, no mother have I go to the river where crocodiles lie. Oh, Fiki, she told me, wash this in waters deep, where lions go to drink and crocodiles sleep. And she heard it. Mar, 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 mar. The bird landed on a branch. I can't believe you're doing this again. She said, I don't have any choice. She's given me this blue cloth. She wants me to make it white. I'm not going back there. I'll just have to keep walking. I'll find someplace else to be. The bird said, That's ridiculous. But I think I can help you. In fact, I know I can. And snatched the cloth out of her hands. You go and have some fun. I know a place where the grass is soft and the sun is warm, sort of like it's been in Ireland for the last 3 months. Go, enjoy yourself. A child should have time to rest, and flew off with the cloth. Well, she did just that. She found that warm, sunny patch in the grass, and she lay down. And eventually she heard her friends laughing somewhere off in the distance, and she joined them, and she brought them back to the place where she had been laying, and they all lay down and looked up at the beautiful blue sky and talked about the clouds and made animals and found all sorts of silly games to play and ran around until they were exhausted, because that's what children are supposed to do. And at the end of the day, she went back, and the bird said, Here, and he handed her what turned out to be a heavy, heavy mass of white cloth, studded with little diamonds. Why should I give this to Ofiki? Just go. Go and give it to her. Maybe that will satisfy her. Nothing. Nothing will ever satisfy Ofiki. If I give her something like this, she will force me to go down to the Crocodile River every single day. Maybe not. Maybe not. And so she took the fabric and she handed it to Ofiki. And Ofiki's eyes went wide. Where did you get this? You told me to wash it in the crocodile. There, you did not. It was washed in the Crocodile River. And she unfolded it. You stole it from somewhere. That's what you've been doing. You've been stealing, you stupid girl. And she reached out to slap her. And when she did, the cloth unfolded the rest of the way, and a feather studded with diamonds hit the ground. Ofiki picked it up. She could see maybe the girl stealing the cloth, but a feather with diamonds. And then she realized what was happening. The Crocodile River wasn't dangerous. It was magic. Anything you needed to be washed in there, you would make a wish about what it was and something would happen. The girl probably wished the pot to be clean, and not only was it clean, it was brand new. She probably wished the cloth to be clean, and that blue cloth magically clean. And she probably wished with all her might that that fabric that she'd given her would be shining like diamonds, white. And now it was studded with diamonds. The girl was an idiot. She didn't realize what she had, but Ofiki knew. Ofiki now understood how the Crocodile River worked, and she ran around her house and grabbed up everything she could haul in her hands, and she began to toddle down towards the Crocodile River. She didn't come back. Marmar waited for her for an entire day and a half before she brought the elders of the village to Ofiki's house, where there was lots to eat and money for everyone and food and well, riches. The money, of course, was not used frivolously. It was used to help the people in the village. It was used to help the children get to the village, into the city centers to go to school. It was used for everyone. Now, I must tell you, Ofiki didn't give them everything. Excuse me, Marmar didn't give them everything. Marmar kept the silver feather for herself, though she did give the gold one away. There was plenty already, but she used that silver feather to find her way in the world. But that is another story. And that is the story of Crocodile River.
I loved that story, Donna. Oh my goodness, that was gorgeous. And it was like a film just started to unfurl in my mind. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. It reminded me of, sometimes when cultures meet, you have the best of times. And I remember when I first went to Dublin and we met up with some people from Central Africa, and we couldn't dance together because the Irish bodies dance like this and the African bodies were really liquid. But the music and the singing went really well together. And we gave them an Irish song, which O Roche the Vahawalya, and they gave us an African song back. And the African song was La Bizzo la Morena Jesu, Hale Boque, Hale Boque, Hale Boque, Hale Boque, Hale Boque. And I always thought that song was so full of joy. And I thought that story was wisdom and joy as well. So thank you. And now, of course, we're going to let you to sit back. We'll give you last word, and we're going to entertain you with all of the lovely people that we set up. They're called the Ramble In. So the people who ramble in to the cottage and want to heat by the fire, they have to give warmth to the room by delivering us a story, a song, or a poem. So I'm going to release you now to enjoy that. And I'm going to call on our lovely Colin. So, Colin, are you there? There he is. Hello, darling. And I have to ask you to unmute. I always forget that.